Hi everyone, it's Rain here. Welcome to Rain Francis Art. Today I'm pulling out the watercolors again just to do a little bit of an abstract, sort of blustery, cold November forest evening painting with a starry sky. Won't you join me? This is what I'll be using for today's painting. I'm going to be using Strathmore watercolor paper. It's cold press, 140 pounds. 9 inches by 12 inches, and I have it on landscape. That's the 300 series here. It's a pretty good watercolor paper for just having fun and practicing. It does warp a lot though. For paints, I've got my pan paints out. The brand is Pretty Excellent. I bought these on Amazon. I don't know if they go under a different brand name, but when I bought them, it was called Pretty Excellent. And what I'm going to be using today, I'm probably only going to be using 3 colors. Prussian Blue, Payne's Gray, and Black, I think. Because, you know, this is the blustery, cold, rainy season here where I live in the Maritimes of Canada. End of November is always really cold and rainy, so I figured, oh, I'll do a cold and rainy kind of scene today. I've got some water, I've got some paper towels, and I've got a couple of brushes. I might use other brushes, but I will put a link in, not a link, I'll put a list in the description of what I eventually end up using. But I have a large round brush here and a number 2 flat brush. All right, so I've masking taped down my paper so that I have a nice frame after, and I'm going to start. And I think I'm going to start with my dog snoring. He's snoring so loud. I'm going to put my water in front of me here, and I'll let you know what I'm using as I go along, just so I don't have to constantly put the palette in front of the camera. So I'm going to start with my Payne's Gray and my flat brush. And what I'm going to do is just kind of paint in images. What is the word I'm looking for? What looks like illusion, there we go. Illusion of trees, just like this. Just with the Payne's Gray. Kind of randomly, because these are going to be behind. And they're going to be covered and possibly washed out, but I just want the illusion of trees in the back, you know? They might look like they're in the fog or something like that. So they don't have to have any kind of perfect shape, or I need more water for that. And we are going to have to let these things dry in between layers, okay? They should dry pretty fast. I'm going right up to the edge of my masking tape there. Maybe put a little one down here. Oop. Okay, so I am going to let that dry, but in the meantime, what I'll do is start the top area here, and that's where my Prussian Blue is going to come into play. I'm doing wet on dry today. Actually, you know what? I might put a little bit of wet on wet just up here in the sky area. I'm not going to touch the trees at all, because I want those to dry. And I'm just going to dip into my Prussian Blue and just add a layer of Prussian Blue. We are going to be adding lots of layers to this, which for the Strathmore paper might not bode well because it's actually already starting to buckle, but you know, that's okay. This is a painting for relaxation and for fun today. Now, when you're layering over watercolor, you have to make sure that it's absolutely dry, or else you'll wash everything out. So I'm just kind of going around the trees for now. In the end, I want the top to be a lot darker than the bottom, so I am going to let the entire thing dry, and then I'll come back to it. Okay, so my painting is dry. If you think it's dry, wait another 5 or 10 minutes and then you'll know for sure it's dry. I do have a little wet spot there, but that's perfectly fine. I'm going to take my large round brush and go into the Prussian Blue again. And I'm going to start from the top. Because remember what I said, I want that sky on the top to be darker than the rest of the painting. And this is not going to be the last layer, so I'm not going to worry too much about how it looks right now because I want to just cover the entire painting with Prussian Blue. I just want to make sure I get right up to the edge of the masking tape so that when I pull the masking tape off, it looks nice and framed. Now we're going to start covering those trees. And there's a fly. Hello, fly. Get out of here. I still have some fruit flies hanging around. Right, I've just got water. And I don't want to wash those trees out. I just want to cover them with a layer of Prussian Blue so that it really looks like they're in the background there, maybe behind some fog, or I'm putting the Prussian Blue like that, and then I'm adding water and then quickly going over the trees. I want to cover the entire canvas. I don't want to see any of that white. Okay. And it goes without saying, I think at this point, that we have to let every layer dry very, very well. But I am going to add a little more dark blue up here, the Prussian Blue. I accidentally dipped into the Payne's gray a little bit there, but I think that's all right. It helps to darken the sky. But I'm trying to stay with the Prussian Blue. I've got a little water on my brush. I'm just going to soften up that edge there. Okay, so we're going to let that dry. I'm just going to repeat the process now. I've got my flat brush and I'm going right back into my Payne's gray and I'm going to add some more trees. Just adding some water to make that less dark. Just before I started this segment here, there's a dump truck somewhere in the vicinity, and oh boy did it make a lot of noise. My little dog got really scared. Poor girl. My Rottweiler, she's afraid of loud noises. So you'll have to excuse me if you hear that sound again, because I can't control that. See what I'm doing? Just kind of making it look like trees here. You'll see this area kind of bled out. It's because it wasn't exactly dry. So I'll just try to make that look a little bit like the top of a tree. But this is going to be behind the Prussian Blue again. I really do have to let this dry. But I don't want it to be that dark just yet on this layer. That dump truck is passing by my house right now. Boy, that's loud. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. Okay, I'm just going to continue. Maybe I'll make a big one here. It doesn't look like much right now, but hopefully when it's done it'll look nice. I get ideas when I look on the internet, you know, I look at image searches on Google and I try to find nice pictures or painting ideas, and just for fun, you know. because we could all use a little fun. And also, it's very relaxing. All right. Now this time, I am definitely going to let this dry completely. Now I'm just going to continue layering. I'm going to put another layer of that Prussian blue all over. I have a little bit of water on my brush and a lot of paint. I'm just adding some more water when I find that the paint seems to be straining a little bit. I love Prussian blue. I used to do paintings with only Prussian blue. That was the only color I used, and I managed to get a lot of different hues and shades and highlighting. It was really cool. So now we're going to be careful not to linger too much with our water, because I would like to keep the shape of those trees. And we can still kind of see the first layer of trees that we put on there. I wasn't sure if they would show at the end. They may not. I don't know why, but I'm thinking of the Lord of the Rings right now, with the Ents, the army of Ent trees coming at the goblins, or what were they? Not goblins, the Orcan? Not Auric. Sorry, Auric, if you're watching this. I didn't mean you. I have a lovely young friend named Auric. The Orcan, I think they were called, right? In Lord of the Rings. Okay. Let me add a little bit more Prussian blue up here, just to get it a little darker in certain areas. And then I will, this time I'm going to have to be patient and let it really dry very well, because my canvas is soaked right now. So let's let that dry. I just thought before I wanted to let it dry, I am going to add a little bit of Payne's gray to the sky up here, just to make it a little darker, because I don't want it to be a bright blue. It's a dark night sky. It's a dreary November evening, you know, so I want it to be pretty dark. And the Payne's gray does a good job on that. I've just got my water here. I'm going to try to blend that in. There we go. So now I'll let it dry. Now I'm going to paint some trees. I've got my flat brush and I'm going into my Payne's gray, and I'm going to paint some trees. And I'm going to start with just a line to give me an idea. And I'm just kind of making the leaves, or the, not leaves, because these are fir trees or conifer trees. The needles and branches are going to come out like this on either side. And I'm not trying to make this perfect at all. I just want to have fun today. Lots of fun today painting. There. These are usually what my trees look like. And then I'll soften up the edges a little bit. Okay, so that's really what my trees look like. And I'm going to do a couple of them. A couple meaning probably many. Back into the Payne's gray. dog is snoring so loud. Yeah, anyone who watches my channel knows that that's all part of it. This is reality TV, I always say. Alright, now I'm just gonna make the tree look slightly more realistic. Gotta make it a little wider at the bottom though. From about here it has to come out wider. Maybe I'll make it a little taller. And then at the top, just a little stem on top. There we go. And it has to be wider at the bottom. It doesn't have to be, they usually are. I'll just put it that way. And I'll put this fella here in front of that little guy in the back. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and, you know, do that for all my trees here. Make a little one here. I wish I had blue trees. They do kind of look bluish, though, at night, depending on what's happening in the sky. Sometimes they look black. I do have a couple of blue spruce on my property, and they really look blue. They're gorgeous. All right, continuing on. How about a big one? There we go. I have to remember to make them larger as they go down. I have a bad habit of just making them like rectangles. I'm sure some trees do look like that, but I want them to be nice and bushy on the bottom. As Bob Ross says, lots of critters living in those trees. Let's give them lots of places to hide. I love channeling my inner Bob Ross. There we go. And how many more should we do? I'll put a little one here. Maybe a medium one, so it's not like little big, little big. Try to make it look like a forest, you know. These two are running into each other here. I don't even know if I'm going to use my black color today. I wanted to put a few black trees in there to make it look like they were really in the front, you know, but we'll see. All right, and a tall one here, and that's going to be sort of off the page, off the canvas on the other side. And you know, you could choose any color you want. You could have chosen a greenish color or a different shade of blue. Just, you know, the gray should be there. But all the background here could have been another shade of blue or green or even red. I'm just going in and adding a little more Payne's gray in certain areas. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm doing here. Just to make certain spots stand out more. Okay. This one, we lost it a little here because of the buckling of the paper. That's what happens. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, but I am going to take a little bit of Prussian Blue and add that to the sky. Right to the masking tape. I don't want to use too much water because, like I said, my canvas is already buckling, but I'm going to try to blend that in here. All right, now I have to let that dry completely. Okay, what I'm going to do is yet another layer. I'm going to add another layer of Prussian Blue across the entire painting. Lots and lots of layers today. Everything is dry. And then I'm going to end the layering after the next time. Oh, you know what? I accidentally went into my Payne's gray, so let me correct that. Get into the Prussian Blue. Put a layer of Prussian Blue everywhere. Everything should be dry, but I just noticed the top of this tree was not dry. It seemed dry, but it wasn't. Sneaky watercolors. I never thought it would be possible to layer watercolors, but if you do it quick enough, you'll be okay, as long as everything's really dry. All right. That's all I'm going to do for now on this. So now it looks like we sort of have a background here. And what I'm going to do is take my flat brush again, and I'm going to go into the Payne's gray, and I'm going to see if I can actually do this. You know what? I'm going to wait, and I'm going to let this dry. I'm not going to be impatient. I'm going to let this all dry. I just want to fix something here. There's a little spot there. I'm going to let this all dry, and then I'll add more trees, and then we'll do our stars. So I did wait until this was dry, and I'm pretty sure it's completely dry, although I've been saying that the whole time. I've got a liner brush here. It's a number 4 liner brush, and when you wet it, it comes to a very fine point here. And I'm going to use that to paint some trees. And I'm going to use my Payne's gray. And I'm just going to start with a small one here, just to make sure that I get the hang of it. Because my trees usually look like the ones I painted in the background. But I want to try something different. I want to try just pulling some paint from that trunk onto the side of each, onto each side of the tree, that is. I want to make them look slightly abstract. What I'm doing is I'm dipping into water and I'm pulling the paint out. With the Payne's gray. Dipping into water and into the Payne's gray paint, that is. And I'm going to try to make sure that the bottom is always wider than the top of the tree. Whoops, I just painted something there. Let's give that a little, there. And I'm going to do that across the entire painting. Some of them might be larger than others. But that's usually what I do initially, is I put the trunk in, and either I do the big wide trees, the conifers like that, or I just pull them out to make them look a little skinnier and maybe a little, I don't know, spookier maybe? I'm going to see when it comes down to it, you know, if I want to add more, or if I like them, or if I want to add more branches to them. But I am going back and forth between my water and the Payne's gray color. And I want to make sure when I'm at the bottom, can you see the bottom right down there? That's where my masking tape line is. I want to make sure that they go right down to that masking tape line. All right, I'll do a bigger one here. This requires my concentration. Usually I'm very chatty, but I'm trying not to be uniform with this. You know, I have a tendency to make things look a little too organized or too perfect if I try too hard. Like these trees here, I'll do this the whole way down, and then I want these to look like they're a little, you know, hard worn in the forest. That November's getting to them, you know, they're a little thin. And I might come back after and make some a little thicker, but right now I just want to concentrate on making them look very thin. As a lot of trees look in November, you know, they look very thin. I don't mind that the background trees are thicker, because that gives the illusion of a big forest. But right now, let's keep them thin, and then I'll come back and add more after. Just want to get the basic outline of my forest here. On my land, I actually have quite a few conifers. They're beautiful. I have a mix of different types. Like I mentioned before, I have a few blue spruce, but they're tiny. The blue spruce are the trees that I'm trying to grow. Actually, I grew them from seed. I actually planted 100 seeds in the fall. They were a mix of cedar, blue spruce, white spruce, and white pine. And the ones that grew the best were the white pine. I planted 25 seeds of each because my goal is to try to make a living fence in front of my house. And I got some people saying, oh, why bother? It's going to take 100 years. It's not going to take 100 years to grow. I will be able to see them in my lifetime. It might take about 20 years for them to grow 6 feet tall, but I'm good with that. I still have at least 20 more years in me. I always say I plan to live well into my hundreds, so I might be able to see them. And if not, you know what? The next people will enjoy them. But yeah, out of the 25 seeds, I think only 3 blue spruce grew, which was disappointing because that was the one that I really wanted the most. Those are the blue spruce were the ones that I really wanted all over the property because they're just so gorgeous. That beautiful blue hue to them. But yeah, the white pines did really well, and the cedars, but I didn't get any white spruce at all. Funny, huh? Don't know why. The great thing about this is it's a little slow work, but it gives this side a chance to dry while I'm doing this side here. So my little trees are not ready to be planted into the ground yet. They're saplings. So I had to plant them in their pots and cover them with some kind of mulch so that they'll survive the winter. So my fingers are crossed that they will survive the winter. Hopefully it won't be too cold this year. And then maybe next year I can plant them into the ground depending how big they get. But they're so cute. They look like little bonsai trees right now. I love watching trees grow. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just rinse off my brush there. I'm going to take my flat brush, the little flat brush here, and I'm putting some Payne's gray in there, and I'm going to try to make the bottoms a little bigger and maybe see what I'm doing, just kind of zigzagging around. I don't have much water, but I'm just kind of zigzagging because I want them to look just a little thicker, especially at the bottom. And it's going to give them a little bit of a darkness too. My dog is next to me. She heard that dump truck and she's been nervous ever since. I live in the country, and unfortunately it's hunting season in November. It started in September, and I think it should be over soon, if not being over already, hopefully. So many gunshots, you know. I don't like hearing that either. Makes me sad. I understand people hunting for food, but I will never understand people hunting for sport. I just figure if you want to hunt for sport, hey, hunt humans. We know what we're getting into. The poor animals don't. Actually, there was an Orson Welles radio show about that. You know, hunting for sport, but they ended up hunting humans. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, I'm not promoting you go out and hunt humans for entertainment purposes only. But you know what I mean. Don't hunt the innocent, you know. right. That looks good. I like how this looks. Of course, this is my painting, so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my large round brush, and I'm going to get that quite wet and put it into the Prussian Blue, and I'm going to kind of smudge it out at the bottom. I don't want it to be too obvious that these are trees coming down to the bottom. I want it to look a little foggy almost. And I'm going to bring that color up in between the trees. Okay. Now I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to do something with the sky. My painting is dry. There is just this little spot here that's wet, but I'm going to take a chance anyway. I'm just going to put a paper towel over the trees, but I'm not going to press down on that. And I have a round brush here. This is a number 4 round brush. This is what I'm going to use to create the stars in the sky. Now I'm getting my round brush nice and wet, and then I'm going to dab it because I don't want it too wet. And I'm going to dip it into my white paint, and I'm going to really load up my brush. Look, loading up my brush with white paint, because white is usually pretty transparent when it comes to watercolors. So the more paint you have on your brush, the better for your sky. Probably want more paint than water. Okay, and now I'm going to grab just a pencil and I'm going to tap. And you may not see too much right now, but you can keep going. And I discovered this the other day. If I wipe it against the pencil, it actually does a good job splattering as well. So you might need more water. You're just going to have to kind of play with it and see what happens. There we go. You see? I needed more water. So I'm just going to add more water. Load up my brush with white. There's a little yellow in my white, and I'm hoping I'm not going to get any of that onto my painting. There we go. Just little splashes of white, just to indicate some kind of stars in the sky. I'm really loading up my brush here off camera. Trying to get as much as I can on there. There. This works just as well as using a toothbrush. I used to use a toothbrush for all the splatter, but it's so messy. Yeah, I should talk messy. You should see the keyboard in front of me. It's filled with paint. I gotta remember to cover it next time I do this. There we go. So just a little splatter there, just to indicate a little bit of sky. Now let me see how that looks. My poor dog. He's still coughing away, poor thing. All right, so I'm gonna, using the same brush, put a little bit more paint onto my brush, but not too much. And I'm gonna try this method here. Need more water, I think. Because I wouldn't mind having some bigger stars in my sky. Just try not to get them on the trees. But if I do get them on the trees, I can always go back into my Payne's gray and just cover that up, which I will have to do, I think. This works much better using acrylic paint, because acrylic paint is a little thicker and less transparent, and it does a really, really good job of it. But I just kind of want to use my watercolors today. There we go. Gotta give it a little elbow grease there. All right, I'm just gonna, there's a little bit of paint just at the tip of this tree. I'm just gonna erase that with the Payne's gray. Maybe a little bit here too. because it's not a snowy night. It's just a starry night. Oh, I just got an idea. I should paint Van Gogh's Starry Night. That would be nice. So anywhere I got little dabs of white, I'm going to try to erase them with the Payne's gray there. Okay, now what I'm going to try to do with my very nice liner brush here in the white, if I can, I've got to get that loaded up with paint. I need a lot of water for this. I'm going to make some larger stars. We'll see how that goes. Just some dots here and there, just larger ones. I don't want them to disappear, so I'm just doing little points here and there along the sky, just so we have larger stars and smaller ones. Sorry for my hand in the camera. I do have to go straight down, or else they get lopsided and they don't look like stars. So you know what? I'm going to stop there. And because pretty much my painting is pretty much dry, I'm going to pull the masking tape off and reveal the masterpiece. Hopefully I have a nice frame. So far so good with the framing. That looks nice. I don't think you can see the framing, but I'm going to show you in a second. You see it on the sides, but I'll show you on the top and the bottom. It turned out really nice. Just a little fun painting. There's the top, and there's the bottom. Nice frame. So my friends, there is my little starry night, kind of abstract forest, spooky looking painting for a blustery cold November evening. I hope you enjoyed this video today, my friends, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and please don't forget to leave a comment. I do love your comments and I reply to them. So we'll see you next time on Rain Francis Art. Take care, my friends. Bye.